But what is grief if not love persevering? So Vision just out here spitting bars now, huh? Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you'll be among the first to know. Episode 8 of WandaVision, called Previously On, which, like all the other titles for this series and this season, has been fitting to what we're doing. Previously On is sort of like, let's take a look at back of all the old clips and all things that we used to do back in the day, and that's sort of what this episode acts as for Wanda, of a sort of reruns and looking at all of the old things that have happened in her life. I'll say this, hands down, this was my favorite episode of the season. It's not even a question, it's not even close. This was a very powerful and emotional episode. And sure, I get it. For a lot of the Super Marvel heads, what was told here or shown here, we already sort of had known or sort of inferred. We sort of learned that all the sitcoms that Wanda was recreating was done by because of shows she probably watched as a kid, and she was sort of recreating those in her brain. That's why all the things weren't a one-to-one match, but she was remembering them the way she did as a kid. That was sort of known. Sitcoms, or the reason why she's sitting in these sitcoms, is sort of what gives her comfort for whatever grief she is going through. That's sort of known. We know already sort of that she went and did experimental trials via Hydra, and sort of to get sort of gained her powers from there. Although we've learned that there's a bit of a caveat or an asterisk to that, which I'll talk about a little bit. And we also saw that we also are aware that Wanda had infiltrated SWORD to confiscate Vision's body. We sort of get a different view of that, and things get a little bit more fleshed out and all of that. So there's more to it. So why this episode was so fire to me is that it's the first episode in the entire season, entire series that sort of gave an entire heartbeat, an emotional core to our main character Wanda, and I'm a sucker for that. If you spend some time, you can give me all the action beats, you can give me all the retro sitcom. I dig all of that. That's fun. It's fun, inventive, and new. But at the very least, you need to give me one episode where we just get into the meat and potatoes of who Wanda is, and this is the episode that does that. We gotta just take a moment to say Elizabeth Olsen is a fucking beast. Like, what she is doing on this series is insane. Managing to go from one thing is to go through all the sitcoms, and I think she's mastering that. But to do the sitcoms in completely different variations of whatever the comedy is of that, like her version of the wife for the Dick Van Dyke Show is completely different than her version of the wife in Modern Family, and she nails that from top to bottom all the way through. The terrifying moments when you're like, yo, Wanda's not to play. She's for real. Those hit. In this episode though, we get the grief. We get the hurt, the pain, and we got glimpses of it before, but this one you can see the mannerisms with her hands, the way she goes up into SWORD and talks to that front desk person, and you can see how much pain and grief, and she's trying to hold it all together, and there are moments of glue that she's trying to be strong and keep it all together, but she is just broken. Watching, you've been that person who, when you've lost someone, you need the comfort things or the things that remind you of them. You got to watch them and listen to them and read their messages. That is what all takes place in this, and I think she freaking nails all of it. Anybody who's ever suffered loss, not nearly as much as probably Wanda, but anyone who has suffered loss, you can see that she's recreating that feeling for the audience, and I think that is it's a masterclass. So kudos to her. I also love that this episode is just literally just about two characters. We get a little bit more in post, but it's just Wanda and Agatha. We don't follow up with Monica or Darcy or the Hex version of Vision. We don't get any of that, and there's just these two. So as much as I'm praising Elizabeth, which she just 100% deserves it, Catherine also should be kudos for Agatha, because she is doing some fantastic stuff too. She also manages to go from sitcom to sitcom, and then come in and be terrifying and just be what I would like to see. She's almost like the Loki of this series, where she's sort of, there's an end game for her. She essentially wants to see what makes Wanda tick and how this all worked, which is cool because you can now see that even though she sort of says it in fake Pietro, she used them to sort of, I need to figure out how you did this, because she's one of the witches who wants to sort of control and get all knowing and all powerful as the head witch, if you would. So let's talk about a couple of the specifics. Slight spoilers. I mean, everything is. If you're here, you've already sort of watched the episode. But Agatha's cold open begins in Salem, where she is sort of playing coy. She knows what she's doing, but she's trying to suck up all the power from all the other witches by playing in the damsel in distress, and she does so to her mother as well. So you can see how that sort of plays with what she's doing now with Wanda. She's sort of toying around, trying to figure out how it works and how she got here, to then sort of take that from her. She's aware that it's chaos magic, which is the first time that we get to ever hear that word. Yay! But you can tell that she is going to try and probably usurp and take that power from Wanda, and I don't see that ending well for her. Because I also don't think that she is the true. While she might be the big bad, I don't know if she's the big fight for this series. I think that's going to come into the post-credit sequence that happened in this episode. We finally get the mention of chaos magic, but more importantly, we finally get the surname that we all know Wanda to be known as the Scarlet Witch, which means that we're going to open up some doors and get some crazy stuff happening in the future between her and Strange and all of that stuff. It's about to get wild, and I love that we thought we had an idea sort of what Wanda's powers are and were, or what the cap was. Yeah, this blows that all the hell open. If this woman can single-handedly, just because of her pain, turmoil, and grief, completely just tap into chaos magic and not know how she's doing it to create an entire world, yo, this is about to get nuts. We also sort of get that Wanda and Pietro, but Wanda had some sort of power in the entire time as a kid. It is hinted at and believed that she sort of had abilities that were not quite capped out or did not get the full ramifications of what she could do. She's saying that she was always sort of a witch or mutant or whatever the case may be. That stone, Infinity Stone, the brief interaction she has with that envelops her and makes her powers amplified times 5,000. Which is cool to play with. It could go sort of more into mutants and genes sort of being in play, or it could just be, hey, this particular one is a witch, because we don't really get to see it for Pietro because he's unfortunately no longer there. But we do get a little bit with Wanda, so it's going to be interesting to see how they play that and see if it was a dormant gene or if it was just something else that was going on in play for her. And then lastly, I can't end this video without talking about Vision. We don't get the Hex version of the Vision, but we do get a Vision in the post-credit sequence, what most people are referring to as White Vision. There is a version of White Vision that exists in the West Coast Avengers comic run. Sort of like in this episode, he was dismantled and sort of spread apart, and Wanda's seeing him and freaking out. And then they wipe his memory, wipe his thoughts, and put him back in. And she sort of has to take him out, and it's going to be a fight, which is going to be interesting in this series considering the setup that we just got. I think that's why this episode worked so strongly, because you get all the setup, you get all the what she's doing, and then you get the how, the pain, and the why, so that you can, in this final episode, either A, break her down even more, destroy it, or turn her villainous, and you sort of now understand and have some emotional attachment to Wanda a little stronger than you did before, to say, oh crap, this poor girl, this is about to get grimy. And I think her having to see what they've done to her vision, and then her vision in the Hex probably not even being able to fight that version because it's a real one versus whatever she's manifested. I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better for Wanda, aka Scarlet Witch. The only thing that I can ask for this final episode is that I hope it's an hour or an hour plus. There is quite a bit to wrap up and get to, and so I hope they don't give us one of these 35 to 40 minute episodes for the final. I think we got to finish out with Monica. We got to finish out with Agatha. We got to do something with Hayward and Sword. We need to see where the penultimate version of whatever happens to Vision. Strange has to be put on the board in some way or another, even if it's just a post credit. And there's still a character or actor that we have Vision or Paul Bettany saying that he was honored to work with, that has to pop up, and I don't know what form or who that is, but I there's a lot on the plate for this final episode, and I hope it delivers. This series has not done anything incorrect for me at all from start to finish. I just hope that we stick the landing and give enough time for everything to sort of have its moment. But what did you guys think about the penultimate episode of WandaVision previously on? You can go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcast. We're there. We're currently doing the history of sitcoms through WandaVision with guest host Jamie Drake, which should be a little interesting this week because we don't really have a sitcom, although we can sort of play with the idea of doing recap episodes. But we also have a sister podcast called You Can't Do That Anymore, where we talk about classic movies like American Beauty or Tropic Thunder or Back to the Future, and look at what those films did back in the day and see if they could do those same things today through the eyes of 2021. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.